Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar. Ram, Ram.
Namaskar. Can hear you. Just start with the Guru Mantra.
Right.
Akhanda mandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshitam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha ajnanatimiraandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmiritam yena tasmai shri guruve namaha Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Reva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Initiate the process.
Yeah. So basically, should we go ahead and start with the questions, Babaji, or did you want to say something?
Absolutely. I thought it was an interactive session. So.
Anyway, so lots of people have COVID, and I see lots of people online because of that. Lots of people should have come here, but it's quite a few people. So Babaji, maybe, I've shared some of the techniques for COVID. Maybe we can start with that. Tips for people who have COVID and how they can recover quickly.
Yeah. So, first of all, greetings and blessings from the Parampara. We have also passed through the COVID pandemic in India. Not as if we haven't. We have all passed through that. And everybody kind of admits that in India a good job has been done. No, that is as far as the medical care and all these things are concerned. Now, throughout the pandemic, when people could not go out, they were in isolation, two problems presented themselves whenever I had an online. I was busy. I was having online, starting from our Satsang groups to other Satsang groups to the WHO, the director of WHO. I was online quite a bit. Two things came forward in these discussions that we had, which is applicable to everybody around the world. One is the psychological part. The other is the physical part. Now, as far as the physical part is concerned, especially in a dangerous virus like this, prevention is always better than cure. But when you have it, you need to take all the precautions necessary to handle it medically also, apart from other things. Now, as far as prevention is concerned, what we have found is that most people who practice yoga, have a proper diet, are careful with what they do, keep to cleanliness and hygiene, have a less chance of getting caught by the virus. One. Second, those who do people say, if you do pranayam, how can you be free? Look, as a preventive, certain techniques of kriya like deep breathing, because what has happened is we have forgotten to breathe. We breathe in such a shallow way that it's very easy for any infection to catch, because our lungs are not properly filled with oxygen. Oxygen is very essential. You know, most people suffer because they don't get an oxygen cylinder, which means what? That the cells, the bronchioles, are running short of oxygen. So, what we generally do is when you do the deep breathing pranayam and also the Brahmari. In Kriya, there is a practice called Brahmari. I have discussed this with up to WHO circles onwards and with medical specialists. They all agree that one way you can prevent an infection from going very deep is through the production of nitric oxide in your mucous membranes and your nostrils. Now, the Brahmari, which is part of Kriya, is one of the very important exercises for this. Now, what is Brahmari? Basically, you take a deep breath. This is also useful for those who have already got the infection and who are kind of convalescing. It helps them to recover faster. Meanwhile, I have to again tell you that all the precautions like not shaking hands as much as possible, which I am very happy because we have gone back to Namaskar. Nice. The other day I saw Prince Charles doing Namaskar to somebody during the COVID pandemic. So, well, that is a different matter, but like keep careful, I mean, disinfect your hands, wash your feet, all that you should be doing. Apart from that, let me tell you what Brahmari is. If you start practicing, I don't know how many of you have taken Kriya, but at least the Brahmari you can practice. And it's an ancient practice, nothing new. You make the sound of a bumblebee while you breathe out. Like you take a deep breath, and then when you breathe out, you make. One of the ways of making that is to put your two fingers in your nostrils so that the air comes out with a little pressure to start with, and do like. Then take out your hands and do it without. So basically when you exhale, you're humming, a loud hum, that's what you're doing. That helps to build the whatever resists the invasion of the virus into your nostrils. So once your lungs are safe, other things are safe as much as possible. This is the physical part of it. Apart from that, avoid things like alcohol. Try to shift to a good, nutritious diet. Don't eat everything that you can get your hands on. And this much. Now we come to the other part, psychological. Some people, even though they are not so sick physically, they get into trouble because of the psychological problem. That is, there is this fear, oh, I'm going to die. Because there was someone who I saw yesterday, he went into the hospital and he never came back. So there is this constant fear. This fear actually interferes with your immune system. So those, I have noticed this. Forget about the larger question of God exists or does not exist. We leave it there. We'll not go into that discussion. What I have noticed is that people who have faith find it easier to handle this fear. And if you handle this fear, then if there is a solace inside you, then it builds your immune system better. When you're completely down and you think there's nothing, no help coming, your immune system also fails. So, when you do proper pranayama and meditation, then your endocrine glands are in full working condition. Therefore, your immunity also improves because of this. So, I would suggest take to some kind of a mantra chanting which will help you to give some confidence so that your immunity network starts working properly. This is point number 2. Point number 3 is, during this pandemic, whenever we had an online, I kept telling people, look, don't say that I am isolated, shut down, closed down, locked down. Say that I am in solitude. Just substitute the word. I am in solitude. You know, in ancient times, not only in India but in other countries too, some people voluntarily embraced solitude to do wonderful things. So, when you say, instead of saying I am in isolation, say I am in solitude, and nature has given me a chance to be in solitude, so let me do what work I can when I am not able to go out. So many creative things can be done during this period, because you don't have to rush to the office. And so, of course, there is the other problem. Maybe some people have, you know each other well only when you are closed down in a room. When you are going to office every day, you are gone and somebody else is in the house. There is no problem generally. You come back in the evening, everything is hunky-dory. But living in one room, in one house, throughout without going out also creates some problems in human. So consider this to be a space and a time when you can be in solitude. Now what do I do during this time? do all the reading that you have lost, time you have lost in reading. My suggestion is take up books like the Bhagavad Gita. Now all translations are available. Unfortunately, we can't read the original, so take the translation and start working on this reading, trying to understand. Go into the lives of yogis who have gone off for months together and sat in isolation and meditated. Think of all the great scientists who have been able to do the research because they cut everything off and decide, let me do this work. And what I'm trying to say is look at everything in a positive way. Don't completely keep repeating the negative. I'm in a lockout, I'm suffering. You're not suffering. You are in solitude and your mind is able to do things which you normally would not be able to do. Meanwhile, since you are at home, that doesn't mean that you should just lie down in bed. Do some exercise. Now, yoga is a beautiful thing to do. When people complain that I have no time, I have to rush off to you're not going anywhere. You're working from home, you have your computer, your time is under your control. Do asanas regularly, do anulom vilom pranayam regularly, eat good food, have some faith, chant some mantras, do the brahmari, meditate. You'll see one is able to handle this much better. And if you're allowed to sit with a patient who's in a hospital, explain this to them. If you ask me, there are beautiful mantras like the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which brings about a real confidence in a human being. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshiyam Amritat. It's a beautiful mantra. Let them chant. If they cannot chant, put it in the headphones. Give them a phone or something, smartphone, record, put in their headphones, let them listen. These are the things that we have been doing during this pandemic. So, hopefully, I think you'll also be okay and is on its way out. That's my guess. Not my guess, that's my prayer. So, till then, please try and follow at least some of the guidelines which I gave you today. Last, let me repeat. Where possible, wear masks. Be practical. Like the Arab saying, trust in God but tie your camel. So wear masks where essential, wash your hands, use antiseptic. As far as possible, prevent shaking hands, because some people may have something which you can't even see outside. There are asymptomatic cases of the virus. Less dangerous, but dangerous because they are very infectious. So I think this is about all I can say about this. Thank you.
My question to Master is, Bible says, ask you shall get. What's the science or spiritual reasons to happen, that this happens? What or who is behind this, and why is that my thoughts are getting fulfilled? The good thing about this is I send a thought to somewhere and it works most of the time for me and I get exactly what I wish for. Thank you.
Now this is rare. Everybody doesn't get what they wish for. If you get what you wish for every time you send a thought, you're lucky. And that's all I can say. You're blessed. But everybody doesn't get what they want when they send a thought. However, let me give this a little more deeper understanding of this statement. Ask and it shall be given thee. I have a feeling that it is a spiritual question. It's a spiritual problem. Ask and it shall be given thee. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto thee. These are all three sentences uttered by Jesus in the Gospel. Now, I think he was a great yogi, honestly. If you say in Indian terms, he was a parivrajaka, a moving yogi who never stayed in one place. Right? So, I think more than material benefits, which we ask for, we sometimes get, we sometimes don't, simply for the reason, if there is a greater intelligence, let's say at the moment. If there is a greater being, a greater intelligence, that being or that intelligence knows what you actually need, which may be quite different from what you want. So probably those things which are not, which you don't get even if you ask, are probably what you want, but in the long range, not what you really need to progress towards divinity. So that's the thing. But if somebody really gets what they want, probably what they're asking for is what they need. Really. There may be some, their minds may be good enough to figure out what they want and what they need, but sometimes also what you want and what you need come together. That's also there. Sometimes what you want is what you need, but many times it is not so. So therefore you can't blame that being, whoever, whatever it is, who's sitting there, oh, I have asked so many times. If you reflect after 5 years, you will find, for instance, that it is a good thing you didn't get what you wanted because you have got what you needed. Now, from the spiritual point of view, now this is the material world, we are all human beings, we have our desires, okay. From the spiritual point of view, I personally think Jesus was a great spiritual being. So, from the spiritual point of view, look, I'm not talking about the church, I'm talking about Jesus. We're not talking about an organized structure, we're talking about a human being who's a yogi, who's a great being. Okay. So when he says, ask and it shall be given thee, I think it applies to the spiritual law that if you really desire to move forward in your spiritual field and keep asking for it, you'll get it somehow. When you get it somehow, you might have to compromise with some other things. Quite natural. So ask. And seek, and yes, anybody who has sought, who is fully with all attention seeking spiritual fulfillment, will certainly get it. Knock and it shall be opened. Usually you find all the doors closed. Now, you need to knock incessantly. If you knock, one day the door will certainly open. That there is no doubt about that. Well, there is one more mystical and yogic meaning which I don't know whether I should discuss it, because people who are grounded in a certain religion or so may not agree with this. But I also think knock and it shall be open unto thee should be put together with another statement of Jesus which says, therefore if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. Bible. So, if your eye is single, your whole body shall be full of life. Cannot mean that you are blind in one eye. There must be some eye, the wisdom eye in you, which if it opens, your whole body shall be full of light. Now for that, you need to knock at that. Knock at the single door, which is the entrance into the portals of greater things. I think I have spoken enough on this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, and namaste, Shriyam. Thanks for spending your time on us today. The question I have is around the topic of free will. The scriptures repeatedly state that God is the doer. And Swami Vivekananda, for example, describes free will as in contradiction. He said there's only freedom and will. So from freedom we come, into freedom we go. And in between, there's will that arises from ignorance. And then if I think about it, I think will seems to be a result of my thoughts and my preferences and my compulsions. And that's all in turn seems to be influenced by accumulated karma. And then I'm thinking, are all my choices in my life already predestined? And is that the reason why sometimes a future can be predicted by saints and seers? And then I'm thinking, if free will is only an illusion and we are only observers, how do we then accumulate karma? Is it how we identify with our actions? So those are a whole bunch of questions that go under the topic of free will. If you would like to say a few words, it would be
Yes, please. I would say that with Swami Vivekananda, that there is free will. Why? Because from our understanding, from what we have experienced, what we have learned, what we have understood, even if there is no free will and it is planned by some greater being, let's say, our understanding is that in essence, when we go into the depths of our consciousness, we are part of that same being. We're not different from so if we are not different, and if you are part of the same being who is supposed to have wrought this destiny in for us, then we may also be able with complete attention and to change it at will. It's not our will. The will comes from the divine. And the divine will is what is in us. It's been cluttered and conditioned by our little desires and small things that we think are the best. When we move out of that, you will find that so as long as you have not moved out of that, it looks like we are victims of this no free will business. Yes. Now you said about karma, yes. Today, this is the theory of cause and effect. If there is an effect today and we are in a certain circumstance and we can think only on certain lines, it's because there is a cause for it somewhere in the past. Whether we believe in past life or I do, but there is some cause out there. Now the important thing to note is that knowing this, we have been able to understand, yes, so there must be a cause for this effect, therefore I am in this because of my cumulative karma, as you said, good word. Right. Now, if that is so, and if now I realize that it is so and I need to change it, I cannot go back to the past and tinker with it. What can I do? What are the present circumstances I am in? And how do I handle this so that the future has no problem? I can only do that. I cannot do anything else. Therefore, we sometimes feel helpless. It's not as if I cannot do. I cannot go back and tinker with my past deeds. But given the blueprint that I have now, I can live in a way that I don't repeat those things which have made me so conditioned. So that in future, when you and I meet in some other life, perhaps, then you will say, yeah, I understood, now I am free. So when you say I am free, that means there is an iota at least of free will there. And that free will comes because we are a part of that Supreme Being from our understanding. A spark, let's say, even if it is a dim spark. Now, if you want that spark to glow, then you need to remove the conditionings and remove the screens which cover it. And therefore now you require your will to do that. I understand. To get this thought, there must be some connection with the past. But once it is seen and it's evident, then we can work on it, right? And move forward. Therefore, I think, last sentence, not for now, I mean, I think that there is one thing which we have full freedom to find, spiritual fulfillment. Other things we may not be able to always. This, everybody has a right to move forward. Therefore, as somebody said long ago, seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto thee. Ask and it shall be given thee. This freedom we have. We have the freedom to ask, right? Then after asking, we'll see what happens. Let's not get bogged down saying, oh, what? Yeah.
Thank you.
Continuing on from the previous question, I guess, very relevant. He's saying, what's moksha according to your experience? What is moksha according to your experience? And I guess he's more asking, how does a liberated soul experience the world, I guess, in a way that what is it according to, your experience?
Let me say, first of all, I don't know why our friend has drawn the conclusion that I'm liberated. Okay, anyway, if he has, suppose he thinks I am liberated, then you live in this world totally liberated. You see, suppose you have touched something that is unconditional. You have to live in this world which works on conditioned responses. This world, generally, it works on, I know somebody and that person is like this, so I respond accordingly. I know somebody else who is like this, or some situation which is different, I respond accordingly. So if you have touched the source, suppose, I'm very thankful that you think I have touched the source, but suppose I have touched the source, then I don't respond in the same way that somebody else responds. When you get there, you'll know how it, I can't explain to you. It's like you don't. Okay, so when I speak, for instance, suppose when I am talking about a problem or I'm discussing with somebody, for me, it's not important what words are being used, but what effect it has on someone. Like I may be speaking about something completely different, but what I'm watching for is what effect does it have on that person. Because if I know the effect, then I know how to alter it. My job is that. So when I'm liberated, if I'm liberated, I think the greatest foremost thought in your mind is how to get others also into this liberation. Because it's so wonderful. Why are we shut up in this little room and going around in circles? Can't we come out? So the major emotion is, can we break the what do you call that? The structures that we have created and move. And these structures sometimes are when you break structures, people sometimes get very agitated because it's so painful, because we have made our own little structures, we worship those structures, we live on those structures, so when it breaks, now when Shankara says, while he's propounding Vedanta, not this, neti, 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 it means one by one, remove all the preconceived ideas and structures that we have created in the mind. When everything is finished, you're free. And the foremost emotion in the mind when one is free is to, how do I share this? It's difficult. People are not open to receive. You get stuck in some image. You change one image, then there's another one which you're stuck with. So I think I live in this world as things happen without any forming any distinct plan. Now this might sound dangerous. If I don't have a plan, what will happen? Nothing will happen. For me, nothing has happened. So, but for that first you need to touch the source, which fortunately is within all of us. It's not as if it's only with me. It's in all of us. This is the great good news, that this thing which we call the supreme reality, with its whatever, is in all human beings. And we need to, which is why the Vedantas declares tattvamasi, you are not this, you are that. So suppose I find that kind of freedom, and generally it comes also with some kindness and compassion, then I also want to share with others. Now sharing with others, in some cases it is not so difficult, in some cases it is difficult, sometimes you have to break images, all this is normal. But as long as I don't get upset, it's okay. This is how I live on this earth.
Namaskaram, Babaji Ram Ram.
Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar.
During third eye meditation, I belong to Sant Mat tradition, which also lies a bit with Sufism. So we practice the meditation of sound and light. And
Clear.
yes, so during the third eye meditation, sometimes my back bends, and then I realize to keep it straight. But it happens quite a lot, and I get unaware. So, what is a technique to keep it straight throughout the meditation period?
I think if you constantly feel that your back is being bent and you have to take your attention there, then you are distracted. Right. My suggestion is there is no harm if you have a support for your back. As long as the support is not so comfortable that from Turiya you are going to Sushupti. I mean from meditation to deep sleep. As long as it's not that comfortable, if you have something which needs your support, then that distraction of the mind going away from here you can handle that. There is no other way to do that. Once you have deeply absorbed in whatever you're doing, when your kutastha is active and you are completely involved, then you can do away with this. Then the body generally won't slump or move. It will be steady. Temporarily, it could be helpful to you. A hard wall is better than a soft cushion. That's what I'm trying. Okay?
Thank you, Babaji.
You're welcome. Blessing.
24 tattvas of Sankhya provide a very useful framework to understand the various samadhis. Would it be correct to view nirvitarka, savitarka, nirvichara, and savichara samadhis as developmental stages towards the final goal of Kaivalyam? Do these progress or unfold in a linear manner like the ontogeny of child development? So that's the question.
That is the question, yes. You are right. It is a wonderful thing to understand the 24 tattvas and the 3 gunas and all the terms that Sankhya philosophy has given us. It's interesting to note that even the Vedantins or any other people who study the Nyaya or people who study any other philosophy, still they make use of the same terms that have come from Sankhya, which shows evidently that Sankhya is a very old system, Kapila. And Kapila is so important that Krishna has to declare, especially in the Gita, that among the munis I am Kapila. This is where Sankhya comes from, right? So therefore, but the most important things to understand more than the tattvas is that the gunas, the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamoguna. From tamoguna to come to sattva guna, it is not a direct path, it can go only through rajoguna. Now, tamoguna is inactivity, inertness, laziness. Most of the day I sit there in one leaning chair with my legs up. I mean, you can call it tamoguna, you may also mistake it for sattva guna, we don't know which. Anyway, so they look similar, outside, but they're not. So, and then from there to go to sattva, which is goodness and calmness and tranquility. Tranquility also sometimes makes you motionless, but that is not inertia or laziness. They could be easily misunderstood. Now to go there, you need to take the tamoguna into action, which is rajoguna, which is why Swami Vivekananda and so many others have said, do service to others, keep yourself active. Now from there, therefore, the tamoguna through rajoguna goes into the sattva. Now, it's only when it goes into sattva guna, because he asked these questions, that we can even discuss matters like savitarka, savikalpa, and so different stages of consciousness. First it has to go to sattva. Now always it won't be pure sattva, because when it is pure sattva, sattva disappears and there is kaivalya. So So, as long as there is even a trace of sattva, it's not good or bad, it's a fact, you are either in savikalpa samadhi or savitarka samadhi. All these are different linear stages to go into that which is beyond. And the final stage, of course, is what in the Yoga Sutras, in the Yoga Darshana is called Kaivalya. Yes. Now, what happens when you say savikalpa, savitarka, that means the mind becomes calm and quiet and absorbed, but there are still seeds of thought floating inside, which can sprout at any time. In nirvikalpa, all the vikalpas are finished. There is no more sprouting. So, nirvikalpa is the stepping stone to Kaivalya. Now, even in nirvikalpa, there is still some differentiation. It's subtle differentiation, it's not gross differentiation. But in Kaivalya, but no one can expect to get into that called Kaivalya without nirvikalpa samadhi. So once nirvikalpa is experienced, then there is Kaivalya. Now when Kaivalya is touched, then the word Kaivalya is from the root Kaivalyam, only one. So when Kaivalya is touched, there is nothing there except the observer. And that observer is not your ordinary observer, it is the Supreme Purusha. Yoga Darshana and Sankhya Darshana use the word Purusha, not Brahman. Purusha, okay, fine. Now Purusha doesn't indicate man, okay? It indicates the plus, not even plus, the all-pervading Supreme Being. When the mind becomes completely still in sattva, and when one has entered nirvikalpa samadhi, then there is no individual, there is only the Purusha. There is no small individual, it's all gone, there is only Purusha. Now, there is only one. Not in relationship to an individual only, but in the whole universe, one discovered there is only one. This is Kaivalya. The Vedantins call it Moksha. The Yoga Darshana and Sankhya Darshana, it is mentioned as Kaivalya. It is the same thing, freedom. Total freedom, but not freedom from something. Only freedom. There is no from there. It is a step, yes. One goes, you cannot suddenly jump. There have been cases, rare cases of a jump, but it's generally not possible. If there is a jump, if there you find a case like that, that means that person has gone through all the other things some time before in some past. Otherwise it cannot jump. It's unfair. There is no unfair thing like that in nature. So,
Namaste, Guruji. My question is, I need some help in understanding how to watch the thought, especially when you want to avoid distraction in meditation. In one of the recent satsang in Berkeley, you said, imagine having scissors, and every time a thought comes, cut it off. I feel that there's only, I'm thinking, and or if I have the scissors with me, I'm kind of waiting for a thought to come, but then I'm not able to meditate. I'm just having the scissors. So it's confusing to me to understand how the same person who's meditating can also be watching the thought. And I really need to stop these distractions, I feel. I need some guidance.
okay. Now it's like this. Distractions come due to two reasons. One is the external influences that one has passed through in life till now. All your experiences. Most distractions are based on that. Not physical distractions, I mean mind distractions. Right? Yes. So why? Because when I'm sitting down, I know that I have to be quiet. I know that the thoughts have to subside. I know that when the thoughts subside, I will probably reach my essence, which is observer. I know all that theoretically. But I've carried so much in my mind, you can say brain if you like, it doesn't matter, from the past, that they come in the forms of different thoughts which become distractions. This is the process. So therefore, unless and until we understand this theoretically, that we have to put aside all those especially troubling influences. Even enjoyable experiences are a distraction in a way, but that is the next step. You see, for instance, if I have some pain has been caused to me in the past through somebody's action, let's say, this pain remains with me in my mind somewhere. When I sit down to quieten my mind, it comes out in some form of distraction. You won't even recognize it. It may come as a completely different kind of distraction. You only know I'm being distracted. So, in meditation, if you don't want to use that scissor thing, everybody can't do the same technique. There are different kinds of people on this earth. There are different meditators, different kinds of sadhak. So when I described that, it was a general process. So if that does not work for you, there are other ways of doing it. So first thing is, in daily life, if you can free yourself from the past impressions that have gathered in your mind, not when you are meditating, which means when I get up in the morning, can I get up and say this is a new day, and the person I am seeing is a new person and not the same person who has been with me for 10 years or 20 years or 50 or 5 years or 2 years, I don't know. If I can, because we form an image of somebody, we don't allow that person to change or that situation to change, because we have formed this picture of that situation. We don't allow it to change because we enjoy putting that picture up. So if I can say sleep and get up in the morning and say yesterday it's over, I've thrown it out of the window, this is a new day, and carry on with my life, then when I sit down for meditation also that those distractions will not touch me. So I hope you understand what meditation or being free is not just a sitting down process, it's a daily life process also. So in daily life, if you can try to the best extent to do this, then I'll tell you what will happen. If you somehow successfully manage to throw away all the bad impressions of the past, which pain you, which cause you trouble, which distract you, suppose you have succeeded, still there will be some distraction, and that will be the good distractions. Which means all good things that happen to you can come back to you when you're sitting down to meditate, which is a good thing. You don't have to shed them. You stay with them. If you stay with them, they have a way of vanishing with themselves. See, this is basically shifting from, in Sankhya terminology, from tamoguna to sattva guna. The painful ones are the tamoguna, the sattva guna are the good things. Ultimately, you have to be free of both. But you cannot jump straight from painful things directly into no thought at all. It's not possible. All people who have meditated have found this out. So shift to beautiful thoughts which do not cause distractions. It could be a deity, it could be God, it could be some little child you love, it could be a flower, it could be the Himalayas. Shift your thoughts to something that you like, you love, you enjoy, and occupy your mind there. No distraction then, right? Because you love it. Okay, stay there. Now that will disappear of its own accord. You can't do anything about it. This is another way of doing this. If you can't do this, it's actually after I discussed this, somebody came back and said that he's a tailor. So whenever he thinks of scissors, he's thinking of clothes. How can I free my mind from this time? I understand. So, you know what I mean.
So here, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's certainly a prayer answered. What I have for you is more of a request than a question. In recent years, I found myself really almost powerfully attracted to, the seemingly diverse energy concepts, Swami Vivekananda, the absolute life, Rumi, chakra, dhyana, and most of the times I couldn't make sense of the connection between all these till I heard you speak on all these topics and so beautifully interweave these concepts. So I got really drawn to your teachings. And when I meditate every now and then, I find this knot or a tightness in my Manipura, and I just want to really release that, and I don't know how to. So I've been seeking guidance with regards to Kriya Yoga from the universe, and I'm so convinced that it has to be through your blessings. So I'm not sure what qualifications you're looking for, but I'm very interested to be initiated in this path, and I think like a lot of us. And if at all God wills, then sometime this year after Purnima.
Let me tell you something. Now, this tightness here that you feel, many people don't actually feel the tightness, but there is a tightness for most people. And in Kriya, we have a technique by which it is released. When we do Kriya, we have something called a nirvichara, which is to relieve that, exactly what you're talking about, right? So, I can't give you separately that technique like that. It has to be part of a system. But since you have asked me this question, I would say that when you sit down to meditate and so on, don't do the whole nirvichara. Just put your right hand on your nabi and rub it a few times like this, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then put your hands together and meditate. Keep chanting Om with your attention here. After a while, it will dissolve. Meanwhile, you need to wait till I give you the Kriya so that you can do the whole thing and be free of it. Now, I think you have kind of linked Swamiji and other forms of yoga and all now, because you must be hearing some of my YouTube talks. I must tell you that among the yogis that I really, really, really appreciate, almost to the worship, I would say, is Swami Vivekananda. Because he combined in him all the qualities of yogis who have been jnana yogis, karma yogis, bhakti yogis, raja yogis. There was a unique combination which doesn't happen every now and then. It happens only rarely. So this is true. So therefore some of my talks, some of my teaching, whatever I say, they reflect a lot from Swami Vivekananda. But like Swamiji said, as times go by, we need to change the presentation. So I may not be strictly following what he did, I need to change. See, I want to point this out to you since you're here. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa was Swami Vivekananda's guru. Look at his life and look at Sri Ramakrishna. There is a big contrast. Sri Ramakrishna was not trying to clone Swami Vivekananda according to him. He was trying to make him a separate, individual, original human being, original yogi. So therefore, there is no idea of trying to clone Swami Vivekananda, for instance. You can be on your own, but you can discover the ideas and put it to good use. Because they are very modern ideas. Like the complete works of Swami Vivekananda, I think they are not meant only for this century. Is a man before his time, yes. So there are still people, even in the Ramakrishna mission, who are still studying the complete works of Swami Vivekananda because there are more things to find. So I'm glad you're interested in this, and I'm sure you must, if you have not, you should read the complete works. Start working on this.
I will. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaskar.
I guess this is a question from me, that you've encountered lots of alien beings, the nagas. You've seen the saptha rishi, the body of the saptha rishis, and so have you met or seen anyone who have sort of, from a human life, the next life is a naga or a saptha rishi, or being born in a different galaxy, different advanced realm, if I want to say so. So if you can.
Yes, this possibility is there, and there are such beings, but they're there for a certain experience, even though they are advanced. But if they also want to have moksha, they have to come again in a human body. This is very intriguing. They need to have, they might have evolved, and they may be having many powers and many things which are extraordinary. Like the devas are a good definition of that. But when they need to find moksha, they have to come back to this classroom here. So from this, two things are implied. One is that yes, human beings can go to other spheres and spend some time there, depending on their karmic requirements. The second point to note is there might be some people who are human beings, who are devas, who have come to get into the classroom. You see? And once they graduate from the classroom, they are free. This is also possible. So there are two threads to this. I'm trying to say that there are people who are human beings to all intents and purposes, but they may not be actually. I'll leave it at that. I can't go beyond this. There are some barriers, some conditions for this. Thank you. So thank you very much, all the people in New Zealand who are here and who are not here. So hopefully I'll see you sometime. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.